And as always, we want to hear what you guys have to say, so we've opened up the studio lines at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. Hey, by the way, if you haven't heard, I just launched the Daily Show here on 940 and 1510 ESPN Radio. That's right, every weekday, 1 o'clock. Mark your calendars. The Tony Fiorino Show brings you the top sports stories from the tri-state area and across the world. That's right, the world. You heard me right. And we just wrapped up on the first week. Overall went pretty well. Pretty excited. You can listen every weekday, 1 p.m. right here on 940 and 1510 ESPN Radio. Or the good news is, just like for the Hey Coach Tony Show on Saturday mornings, you can take the show with you wherever you are, wherever you go. Just go to iHeartRadio.com. Or you can download the iHeartRadio app on your smartphone or tablet and just look for ESPN Danbury. So now there's no excuse not to listen to both of my shows. All right, well, listen, Labor Day has come and gone, and that means that everyone is back at school. But while we are all gearing up for school sports again, there were a handful of youth sport coaches who decided that they wanted to send the youth seasons off with a bang, and boy, did they ever. I have a few stories that should get your breakfast to come back up, but this first one that I want to address, it left me with enough questions that after I read the article, I tracked down the lady who wrote it, and I asked her to join me on the show. Her name is Natalie Davis, and she writes for thepatch.com in Bloomfield, New Jersey. And before I introduce her to you, let me give you a quick rundown on the highlights of this one, and maybe you're going to understand why this one has intrigued me. If you've, by the way, if you've ever sent your kid to a private instructor or a training facility and you left that facility for an hour or so to grab a cup of coffee or something, you're going to want to listen up. Get this. Last week in Union County, New Jersey, a middle school teacher who also owns a youth sports training facility was arrested for allegedly having sexual conduct with an underage girl. Guy's name is Robert Gervasi Jr. Guy's 48 years old, lives in Bloomfield, New Jersey. That's all the information I have on him. Like I said, if I had his home address, I would give it to everybody so we can go to his house. But the guy's name, again, Robert Gervasi Jr. And get this, according to the article that was written, he was taken into custody on Thursday while attempting to meet up with a 14-year-old girl. This reeks of like an episode of NBC's To Catch a Predator. It's ridiculous. And now listen to this impressive list of charges that have been brought up. 2 counts of first-degree aggravated sexual assault. 2 counts of second-degree sexual assault. 1 count of second-degree luring, which I never even heard of. 1 count of second-degree endangering the welfare of a minor. 1 count of third-degree aggravated criminal sexual contact. And 1 count of fourth-degree criminal sexual contact. Now, part of me didn't want to lead with that. Part of me just wanted to tell you a little bit about this guy. Because I will tell you, without knowing already what this guy is accused of, you would think that this is somebody that you'd want your kid spending time with. Think about it. The guy was a teacher at, I believe it's Kawami, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Kawami Middle School in Union, and is the owner of a facility called Ablaze Baseball and Softball Academy. Doesn't that just sound like the kind of guy that you're hoping is going to teach your kid life lessons both on and off the field? Well, he was trying to teach some lessons, okay, but I don't know if they're the kind that I'd want my daughter being taught. At this point, I want to introduce you all to Natalie Davis, who wrote this article for the Bloomfield Patch. If you have not read the piece, you should certainly check it out online. Hey, Natalie, good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. How you doing? Natalie, you with us?
I certainly am. Good morning, Coach.
Well, welcome to the show. How's everything going?
It's a good day. It looks like we're about to be hit with a little wet weather, but other than that, it's a very good day.
Great. Well, I'm glad you had a chance to join us. Congratulations again on a very well-written piece. Very insightful. Certainly left enough questions that I wanted to chat with you this morning and go through some of this. The first question I have for you, Natalie, is I guess what I'm wondering is how did you initially come across this story in the first place?
Well, actually, it had been reported on NJ.com is where I saw it, and then began to look into it because, A, I'm a mother, so anytime I hear a story like this, I just become livid.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea that this man allegedly was using his Parsippany business to I guess follow this little predilection of his, allegedly. It's unsettling, I think, for anyone.
Well, you keep saying allegedly. Where exactly are we with things right now?
Right now, everything is alleged because he is guilty until proven or innocent.
Oh, Freudian slip alert! Freudian slip alert!
But he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And until that happens, everything is allegedly.
Well, the good news is most of the world operates in a court of public opinion, so I think you had it right the first time. That means right now, guilty until proven innocent. But in any event, you talk about this business that he runs, and we're not going to go so far as to say that it's a preteen brothel or anything like that. But tell me a little bit about this place called Ablaze. Tell me what do you know about this facility?
Very little, to tell you the truth. Interestingly, I spoke with a lot of the youth baseball leaders in town, and they have no idea who he is. They have no idea what he is. They had no idea about this academy, and they say that none of their kids received any training from this man. Now, my understanding is that when it was in operation, it offered baseball and softball instruction.
Mm-hmm.
The softball coach on the staff is a young woman who apparently was a softball star. I don't want to give her name because there's nothing that would link her to any of this.
Okay, good.
And so I wouldn't want to put her out there. But apparently something was going on that resembled baseball and softball instruction. Now, this man himself, he was a middle school teacher, and he had a background working as a softball coach for a private school in Montclair in Essex County.
Okay.
Beyond that, only God knows.
It wasn't Montclair Kimberly, was it?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Oh, boy. I didn't even know that. I'm drawing on a blank, and I'm not going to say his name. I know the I wish I know. I know the athletics director from Montclair Kimberly very well. I've spoken at the school. Wow, now you scared me. I may have actually shaken hands with this guy at some point. I got to go get some Purell. Well, listen. You keep saying, okay, there's not much that you can learn about this company, this business, etc. What information was there on the website about the business?
Well, the website vanished in the wind.
Okay.
There's no trace of it. I was able to find a cached version of one page where essentially it was this man, Bob Gervasi, spouting his athletic philosophy. That's it.
Dare I ask? Dare I ask, what did it say about his coaching philosophy, his training philosophy?
The general baseball boilerplate, hard work, fundamentals.
Well, again, the reason I ask is, let's look at this guy's background up until what we've learned might be true just a week ago. Middle school teacher, training softball coach at a private, relatively upscale private school in Essex County, and talks about hard work, dedication. Run-of-the-mill parent of a young softball player. The reason I wanted to leave with this story is, I guess what I'm wondering, as a dad, I would have made this, and I feel, there's nothing, I have humor. There's nothing humorous about anything going on here. Nothing. If I am the dad of that 14-year-old girl who needs softball training, I'm not convinced I wouldn't have made any mistakes that mom or dad made. How are we supposed to know? Are we supposed to be that cynical? I mean, I don't know what you're thinking. Like you said, you're a parent as well. Are we to be that cynical?
Through my head, I have a child who's an athlete, and as any parent, you go to the wall for your kid to get them the training they need, to encourage them in their athletic endeavors. I honestly don't know how you avoid that sort of thing. Although being in Parsippany, we're really very, very fortunate that we have youth sports organizations that are tested and true and have survived for decades. So you know that you can trust them. You know you can trust the Partroy East and Partroy West Little Leagues. You know you can trust Little Vikings football. You know you can trust the youth sports that go on in the schools there.
Now I'm going to stop you there for a second, Natalie, because and again, I don't want this whole show to be about cynicism. I am thrilled that you feel the way that you do. But let me ask you this question. Don't you think, you just said we can trust this guy, we can trust that person, we can trust this group.
No, you did not hear me say that. You heard me say you could trust these organizations.
That's what I mean. So you can trust these organizations. Don't you think that the parents of this 14, and I keep saying 14-year-old girl, it scares me to death because my daughter's 13 and 11, but don't you think that these parents felt they could trust that organization ablaze? By the way, well, first answer that one. Don't you think nobody knowingly puts their kid in the hands of a predator? They had to feel that they could trust that organization and that facility.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure that they did. And I'm sure that in retrospect, they feel terrible about it. The sad thing about it, though, Coach, is that these sorts of situations do happen. Parents can do their due diligence and still run into the hands of somebody who should not be around their children. Unfortunately, that is how the world is. All you can do is the best that you can do in terms of research, in terms of checking out the facilities. And who's to say that whatever parents sent their children to a blaze, and I've yet to meet one, thank goodness, but if I were, I would wager that that parent did indeed do their due diligence in researching Gervasi's history, and his history shows him to be a successful leader in what he did. The thought that he was an educator and that he was this and he was that. What it all goes to show is this is a very dangerous world.
No question about it. By the way, if you want to call and chime in on this, the number is 855-439-2622. And by the way, Natalie, I really don't want to allude or even insinuate at all that this has anything to do with your organizations in Parsippany. But I'm telling you, the mentality, and we all have it. Otherwise, we wouldn't send our kids there. The whole mentality of we've been around for a long time. So, we can trust this organization. We can trust that organization. Sadly, and again, take this away from Parsippany because it could be in Denver, Colorado. It could be in Minnetonka, Minnesota. You can't. The sad truth is you really cannot. And if you are an avid listener of this show, you know that for every story, and I do plenty of them, whether it's people pilfering money from the organization or abusing kids sexually, physically, mentally, what have you, it happens everywhere. I guess the message is, you should be cynical. And don't apologize for being cynical, especially if you are a parent being cynical on behalf of your own kid. But let me ask you this, because you did talk about the youth groups in Parsippany. What's been their reaction to this?
They're horrified.
What's the Parsippany connection though? This was in Union, correct? So what's the connection to Parsippany?
The connection to Parsippany is that he had, of course, his baseball and softball academy there in a little building on New Road in Parsippany. According to police, he was having some sort of a relationship with a 14-year-old girl from Union all through this summer. And apparently one of the places at which he met her was the Ablaze Softball Academy.
No way.
In addition, another spot in Hoboken.
Wait, so you're telling me, and I thought I had read part of this in your article as well, one of the places where these alleged sexual encounters took place was the actual training facility in Parsippany.
That is my understanding.
That's pathetic.
Now, also keep this in mind, that this man himself is not from Parsippany. He lives in Bloomfield.
Oh, even better. He's right in your neighborhood. Perfect.
No, he's not in my neighborhood.
Oh, I'm sorry. You write for the Bloomfield Patch. I'm sorry.
No, I don't. I write for Parsippany Patch.
Oh, okay. I guess they must have just picked up the story based on where the guy lives then.
But no, he lived in Bloomfield, according to police records. He taught in Union, and I guess he pursued extracurricular activities elsewhere.
Wow. Hey, Natalie, do me a favor. I'm going to need you to hang on because we got to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll take some of your calls at 855-439-2622. That's 855-HEY-COACH. We're going to continue on with the rest of this story, but you're going to want to sit tight because I guess today's going to be the day of Coaches Gone Wild because there are a couple of other things that happened just this past week. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Want to remind you that during the week, Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock, you should tune in to the Tony Fiorino Show where I take off my coach's hat and we talk general sports, Giants, Jets, Patriots, Yankees, Red Sox, what have you. Well, I'm not talking much Red Sox these days, unfortunately, you poor slobs in the eastern part of the state of Connecticut. But we're joined by Natalie Davis from the Parsippany Patch, who wrote a piece about, unfortunately, one of many coaches gone wild. This guy, Bob Gervasi, lured and maintained a sexual relationship, allegedly, with a 14-year-old girl, partially at least, in his own training facility. And it scares the daylights out of any parent who's ever sent a kid to one of these places. But in any event, one of the things I was thinking about during the break, Natalie, and I forgot to ask you, is what happened when you called this place? Did anybody have any comment for you?
Okay. I found two phone numbers for a place, and one simply was not answered. The other was an answering machine that had Bob Gervasi's voice on it, but he never, of course, returned the call.
The only thing missing from this story would be if I found out that Bob Gervasi had like an ice cream truck and a clown business on the side. That's the only thing missing from this pathetic guy's life. I swear to God. Unbelievable.
Well, yeah, I would imagine it would make you extremely upset. I think, again, it would make anybody with an ounce of decency upset to hear that something like this could happen.
Did you ever find out what initially prompted the investigation? Because I'm always wondering where these things stem from.
Apparently the police got tips from people in the community who had wind of this happening. And this, again, is in Union.
Okay. Now, I saw in the article that, and I referred to Gervasi as a middle school teacher. I understand that he is a former teacher.
Former.
Okay. Now, did this investigation happen after he stopped teaching, or did he lose his job because of this investigation?
Actually, the school system isn't saying.
You know what? Sometimes what you don't say it screams louder than anything you can say. I mean, and here's where it bothers me. Get a backbone. If you're the school, make a statement. If it's, hey, he's suspended until we know what's going on because we won't stand for anyone who's even accused of this, who's gonna get upset about that? My God, have some dignity for yourselves. Well, listen, the guy apparently is being held on like $500,000 bail or something like that.
That's correct.
Listen, this is just like I said. I have two daughters. One of them is going to be 14 in February, and the very notion that a 14-year-old girl has an ongoing sexual relationship with a 48-year-old man.
With anyone, for that matter.
Well, thank you, because I was just about to catch myself. That's my baby girl.
Exactly.
The idea of anything, but. You know what? I'm not even going to do this. I don't want to turn the show into something that it is not. But there's just something dramatically wrong with this whole equation. I
got you. I've got a 16-year-old boy, and I feel exactly the same way. I'm a pacifist. Anybody touches him, they will die.
Well, and I've said it before. I'll say it again. I will certainly reserve the right to wait until this guy is tried and a decision is being made. I hope this is nothing more than a sad kid screaming out for attention. I don't think that's the case. If this guy is found guilty of what he is being accused of, there's just not a hot enough place in hell. But, Natalie, I want you to stick around if you can because now that I've kicked off everybody's weekend with a bunch of sunshine and rainbows and got everybody in a great mood, let me be really clear that this is not the only coach that went wild. And I don't just mean in general. I didn't save these up for 6 months. This is just in the course of a week, and I had to limit it to probably 3 of them. Guess what? Out on the West Coast, this ain't just East Coast. In Simi Valley, California, A youth soccer coach was arrested as well. But this was on suspicion of punching a 16-year-old player during a fight after a game.
Oh, I see. This one went to the Bobby Knight School of Coaching.
No, Bobby Knight was only caught on tape choking somebody. He never.
Well,
I don't think he ever
okay.
punched. He punched a student. He never punched one of his players. Good for you, Natalie. I like this. We're going to do a little Abbott and Costello this morning. So this one I can actually poke fun at. But here's what happened. The police say that a shoving match broke out last Monday. It was Monday evening after a game between Conejo and Antelope Valley. Witnesses say that Bart Allen, that's the guy's name, he's the Conejo, or was, I guess, the Conejo Valley coach. He ran onto the field and began throwing punches. Police say that a 16-year-old player from Antelope Valley received significant injury to his nose and his cheek.
Oh, my goodness.
This guy, Allen, is 47 years old, and he was arrested on suspicion of battery and corporal injury to a child. Now, the funny part of this one, and again, I don't mean to say funny, but if there is a funny part to this story, aside from Natalie's Bobby Knight crack, police say that this guy, Allen, acknowledged throwing a bunch of punches, but he denied hitting any of the players. So what's funny about that? All right. First of all, I guess, does that make it better? I mean, could you imagine somebody's murder defense? Somebody has an attempted murder charge on him, and they say, hey, listen, officer, I know I shot at the guy, but listen, I missed him. You know, can you let me slide?
Kind of like the definition of attempted.
Yeah, exactly. Besides, I'm sure that this guy, Allen, has got bigger things on his mind right now than the Hey Coach Tony show. But if by chance he got up at 6 o'clock to listen, let me ask you this. If you're throwing punches and you've never hit anybody, you know what? We should probably arrest you for just being the worst fighter in the world.
The thought that occurs to me is perhaps he got swept up in the emotion of it. Maybe he saw himself as part of the team. I don't know.
Well, Natalie, I'm going to want you to stick around for this whole show because I'm not here just to report lousy news. You know, part of what we do here on the show is we shine a bright light on the idiots of the world and drag them into the conversation because we always wrap up with trying to explain why does this happen and, more importantly, how do we fix this. So you said something pretty insightful, and I'm going to ask you to repeat that in a little bit when we get to the other part of this. But I will tell you, all kidding aside, I got to tell you that I am fascinated, as I just alluded to. I'm fascinated with why exactly people get so riled up at these youth and high school games, so much to the point that things get physical.
Oh, I'll tell you exactly why that happens.
All right.
You're familiar, of course, with the Bruce Springsteen song, Glory Days?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these folks are hoping, praying, dying to have their kids have success that will radiate back on them and make up for the fact that maybe they weren't so successful in their own high school athletic careers. They're living vicariously through their kids. Add in the element that they, of course, in most likelihood, adore their children and want all success for them. It could be a pretty heady emotional mix.
Well, no question about it. And there's one thing, I like your common theme. And by the way, if you want to chime in, it's 855-439-2622. I will tell you that I'm starting to stray more and more away from because living vicariously has a little bit of a negative connotation. A lot of times we're assuming that the parent did not have success in their own playing career. And I'm starting to think more and more, and we're going to have to go to a break in a quick second, I'm starting to think more and more that may not be the case. So we're going to dig into this some more when we come back from break. But before we do, and again, 855-439-2622, that's 855-HEY-COACH is the number in the studio. Before we go to break, I don't want to put a damper on all these training facilities just because of what this guy did at Ablaze. But listen, as parents, we do know that each of our kids, they all dream about making the travel team, the college team, maybe even going pro. Well, there is a very reputable new training facility in Westchester County called House of Sports, and they can help bring those dreams to life one champion at a time. House of Sports is a 120,000 square foot facility. It is a state-of-the-art athletic complex. It's one of the largest in the Northeast, and it is jam-packed with features for athletes of every skill level. Check out some of the stuff you're going to find there. They got 4 high school regulation hardwood courts, 26 adjustable baskets, and a 5,000 square foot dedicated shooting lab. There's an 80-yard indoor turf field that can be divided into several smaller fields. There's an 11,000 square foot performance center for speed, strength, and agility training. They got 2 40-yard sprint tracks. They got a plyometric zone. They got a speed zone with 3 treadmills. They got a weight room. They got team rooms for meetings. They have sports cafe and a bar. They got party rooms. They got everything. So whether it's hoops, lacrosse, baseball, whatever, House of Sports has the expert coaches to make sure your kid gets to the next stage of development, regardless of where they are when they get there. Try House of Sports free this September. You heard me, free. And unleash the champion that lies within. Visit houseofsportsny.com or call 855-ALL-SPORTS. That's houseofsportsny.com or 855-ALL-SPORTS for more information. Like I said, we're going to talk some more about why people go nuts and take swings at kids when we get back. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around.
Coach Tony.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony because it's Saturday. But if this was Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock, you'd be listening to the Tony Fiorino Show. That's right. We started a daily show where we're talking general mainstream sports. Same edge you enjoy Saturday morning, just something to help you choke down your lunch on a weekday afternoon. All right, listen, we are talking this morning with Natalie Davis from the Parsippany Patch, who gave us a great story. But it kind of got us into another story where a youth soccer coach got arrested for punching allegedly. This is all allegedly, despite what I may think. But a 16-year-old player got punched in the face by this coach after a game. Natalie gave her opinion about why these things happen, and I think she was pretty close. She was pretty spot on in her assessment of this. If you got something to say about why these things escalate to the point of physical violence when it comes to parents, fans, and coaches, just give us a call in the studio at 855-HEY-COACH. It's 855-439-2622. But I'm going to give you my take for a second because I think there are a few moving parts here. First and foremost, and quite frankly, I think all the other reasons are really just tangents off of this one. Frustration and violence when it comes to youth and scholastic sports all stem from the same thing. It is a feeling of helplessness on the part of the fan, the coach, and or the parents. Now, what do I mean by that? As Natalie said very eloquently, we all want to see our kids perform and perform very well. We all want them to be admired by everybody in the town and recognized as a successful athlete. Anybody who tells you they don't want that is lying to you, all right? If you are a sports parent, it's easy enough to grasp the concept that sometimes athletes fail. In fact, if you happen to be a baseball parent, you've been told by any coach with a brain in his head that failure is a regular part of that game. However, as we know, mindset always changes when it's your own kid who's doing the failing. Listen, we're always very easy to tell somebody else, hey, don't worry about it, your kid struck out. It happens. Baseball's a game of failure. If you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're doing great. We all know the cliches, right? We all know that. But when it's our kid that is failing, that's when the problems start to arise. Now, getting back to that helplessness feeling, and that being the constant thread here. Now, imagine what it's like watching and knowing that your kid is much better than the way that he or she is playing. Am I the only parent who wishes he could really directly help his kid be successful? Of course not. But as we all know, we can't. We can't directly help our kids. We can't take an at-bat for them. We can't go out on the mound and throw strikes for them. We can't make a tackle for them. You get the idea. We just have to sit there and watch them fail. We have to sit there and wonder what all the other parents, what all the other fans are thinking about the failure that our kid just had. Kind of a helpless feeling, right? Now, throw into the mix that maybe a parent on the other team cracks a little joke about your kid's mistake. Better still, maybe one of the parents on your own team makes a comment about how poorly your kid might be playing. And maybe they didn't mean for you to hear it. Not that hard anymore to see how tempers can flare up, am I right?
You're right.
Now, Natalie, the same thing happens to us as coaches. Now, I'm not just a dad, I coach. And I've coached at a pretty high level as well. Now, especially if you're a coach, we go back to former athletes. If you're a coach who is a former athlete, and quite frankly, most of us are, especially at the youth level, just as our children are a reflection of ourselves, like Natalie said earlier, coaches, I know, take tremendous pride in their ability to get athletes to perform at their optimum level. And when they make a mistake, meaning the players, not only is there helplessness for parents, there is, believe it or not, helplessness for the coaches too. I mean, hey, I'm the coach, right? After all, I'm the guy who's supposed to have gotten these kids ready to play, ready to win. If we fail, people think it is my failure as the coach. Now, let's make this a little bit interesting. Consider that perhaps you're, I don't know, let's say a youth soccer coach out in Simi Valley, California, and your team isn't playing all that well. Maybe one of the 16-year-olds on the other team starts talking a little smack. Maybe he's doing it all game long. And maybe your team just can't seem to get it together enough to get back into that game. Imagine the score starting to get a little out of hand. Imagine that nothing you're doing as the coach is helping it get any better. It's not making your team perform much better. And guess what? That pain-in-the-butt kid is still showboating. He's still talking smack. What do you think is happening inside that coach's mind, right? That helpless feeling? What's it doing? It's starting to boil. It's starting to turn into frustration. Now, here's where I let you in on a little secret. Now, I'm looking for some support here. Any other coaches out there ever wish you had a time machine? The ones who know what I'm talking about are laughing at their radio right now. You ever wish you had a time machine so you could just choke the living hell out of a kid, but then go back after you blew off your steam and realize that you were really stupid for doing it? No, I guess it's just me. All right, but
no, it's not just you.
Well, let's assume it's just me, okay? No one else will ever own up to that. So I'm feeling frustrated, and I wish for a second that I was that kid's age, so I could just go out there and either play well against him or maybe even kick his butt. Later in the game, tempers flare up. And you know what? A small scuffle breaks out. Let's say either on the field or even in the parking lot. Is it that hard to believe anymore that a coach could take a swing at a kid? Now listen, I'm not saying it's right. Not by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm not saying I could remotely ever do it because it's not right, it's not understandable, it's deplorable is the best way to describe it. You know, I mean, remember, this isn't like other shows. I'm not a PhD, and I'm not here, to strain my neck trying to smell my own farts. I'm here to help everyone understand what's going on in people's heads so that maybe we can keep one or two of these things from happening. So don't mistake that for me to say I understand why the coach took a swing at a kid. What I'm saying is I can understand what's going on in somebody's head. I can understand how emotions can quickly escalate to frustration. And how each of us handles frustration, well, you know what? That's what separates us from the rest of the beasts walking the planet. And Natalie, again, I think you were pretty spot on with these things. I hope you understand that I'm trying to elaborate a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I really do not want to leave the fans out of this. And I almost did. But last night something happened that caused me to bring fans back into this equation. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. And when I talk about fans, I'm not just saying the moms and the dads and the relatives. I mean just regular fans who go to the game. Now, granted, there are not a lot of those who go to Little League games unless you're in Williamsport, granted. But especially at the high school level, there are plenty. Just go to a Friday night football game and see who's there in the stands. It's obviously not just the parents of the kids. The town always seems to have a pretty the town gets rallied up and they have a pretty good showing. Actually, the reason I'm talking about fans is just last night I went to the Somers-Yorktown game. These are two bordering towns in Westchester County, and it has become a pretty heated rivalry over the years. My son plays for Somers, in case you're wondering. Plenty of fans on both sides, and they all have something in common, and that is tremendous hometown pride. You talk about people who didn't excel in their own sports careers. You walk through the stands on a Friday night football game, and you're going to see the fat, out-of-shape loser who just grew up in the town and never made it and just hangs his hat that I'm a townie and, I run the local business. But this Friday night football is that guy's life. So, just like a coach or a parent, we take ownership of that football team. If Somers loses, it's a reflection on me as a Somers resident or a townie who's been around forever. It actually sounds kind of stupid, but think about this. Even last night at this game, and
I almost have to be ridiculously objective at these games. I found even myself last night. By the way, Somers threw an old-fashioned beatdown on Yorktown, 28-6.
Way to go.
Absolutely. Way to go, Somers. Matter of fact, the JV is just started as well. They're hopefully going to clean it up as well. But the score, and by the way, no way indicative of how bad that beatdown was. Somers dominated Yorktown. But anyway, last night at this game, I found myself wrapped up in the emotion of that rivalry. And again, remember, I'm the good-looking radio guy who's got to stay objective. Now, granted, during the course of the game, what I noticed is Yorktown was a lot louder than we were. But as we started pulling away, I figured they would get quiet. They did not. They absolutely did not. And what happens to me as a fan, I'm staying cool. I know we're probably going to win the game. I'm staying cool. And what's happening is the other fans are starting to rag. They're starting to get on our case. They started making noise when our cheerleaders went out at halftime. And I found myself getting annoyed. I found myself starting to get angry. It was disrespectful. And you'd think that whenever we would score again, that me as a fan would simply take gratification in our team's success and just let it be, right? Wrong. For some reason, and at the fan level, I still don't quite get it. I found myself wanting to make sure that the people on the Yorktown side heard me, and they knew that it was me who was cheering. As if I was saying, hey, you guys can't cheer. We're winning. We're the ones who can cheer. and Natalie, the thing is, you bring this back to that feeling of helplessness, and when it comes to fans, you know what? It doesn't really matter if you're a former athlete or not. Everyone who wants their team to win, secretly or outwardly, wants to be able to do something directly to help that happen. And when being loud is your only outlet, last I checked, they don't yell up into the stands and say, hey, Tony, you want to put the pads on and run a couple of plays. They don't do that. So when being loud is your only outlet, it starts to become a contest of who can be the most obnoxious and who can wear the most ridiculous war paint or who can take their shirt off in the coldest weather. So think about it. You spend a few hours yelling back and forth and developing, at least for a short period of time, a deep-seated hatred for the people sitting on the other side of the field. And then the game ends. And what do you have to do? After the game, the most heated game you can imagine, Union plays Parsippany, Natalie, right? The game is over. You've been screaming at each other. And what do you have to do? After the game, what are you going to do?
I'm going to collect my child no matter what the score was and tell him what a great job he did.
Okay. Physically, what are you going to do when the game is over?
Beat my head into a wall and hope nobody sees it.
Well, before you do that, you're going to have to get in your car and go home. And guess who's parked right next to you? The parents from the other team. My point is, we all have to go to the same parking lot.
Yep.
And last night on the way there, again, not much of a contest, but on the way to the parking lot, the Somers student body was loud and obnoxious.
Oh, God.
And not out of control, but boy, we were rubbing it in that we won, and that was it. We weren't saying Yorktown sucked or anything like that, but we were screaming, singing the Somers song, you know it. And I know firsthand that it drew the attention of some of the Yorktown fans who started to answer back. Now listen, proud to say there were no incidents last night, but think about it. What if that game was a really physical, knockdown, drag-out game? What if it came down to the last play, and that last play involved a controversial call? Now think about what might happen in that same parking lot. Some of the kids or some of the parents are obnoxious in that parking lot. Somebody hears something they weren't meant to hear. Somebody had an extra beer. Not so hard now to understand why these brawls break out, is it?
Oh, no, I don't think anybody has any trouble understanding why they happen. But it doesn't change the fact that they shouldn't happen.
You completely got my vote, and we're going to have to go to a quick break here. When we come back, we'll take some of your calls at 855-439-2622. Natalie Davis and I will talk a little bit more about this, and there is one more story that we have to hit, and this one might be the most disgusting out of all of them. And, well, you know what? I'll let you decide. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the Hey Coach Tony Show on ESPN Radio, coming at you live every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Want to remind you again that there is now a daily show Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock, the Tony Fiorino Show. we invite you to grab your sandwich and sit down and talk sports with us. Not kid sports, general sports, and we do it every Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock. All right, I'm joined today by Natalie Davis, who didn't know what she was in for this morning. She wrote a great article about a not-so-great man who it's all too common a story that coaches are behaving badly. If you have your own coach's story, give us a call at 855-HEY-COACH. But there's one more story that I definitely want to make sure that I hit before this show is over. Because I know what you're thinking. All right, Coach Tony, we get it. There are bad coaches out there. No more. Please, no more. Well, you know what? There is one more. You know what? Actually, there were probably plenty more. But these are just 3 stories. And this is just from last week. And these are just the ones that I was made aware of. But we hit the East Coast, we hit the West Coast, so where do we go next? This one comes to us from Monahans, Texas. And listen to this. As a parent, as a coach, as a fan, everybody knows that discipline is the part of any sport. But some parents believe that, some Texas parents believe that this high school coach took it a little too far during a tournament just last week. According to parents, and this story's been corroborated, they said that the girls' volleyball coach from the local high school made her players run outside barefoot on hot asphalt.
What?
I kid you not. And why do you think she made them do this?
For discipline.
All right.
Tough.
Well, not to make it. Actually, this one was for punishment. It was because they lost a game in a tournament.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you've ever walked across a tennis court that has been sitting in 100-degree direct sunlight. But
have.
It gets pretty hot.
It's not only hot, it's dangerously hot.
It is actually correct.
It could have caused severe physical damage to these kids.
It actually did. We are told that some of the girls ended up with pretty severe blistering on their feet after the punishment. Now, that is more than just a little disturbing because we're talking about physical punishment that I don't want to overstate it, but the term is endangering a kid. I mean, let's call it what it is. Now, here's what's even more disturbing is on top of what might be considered by some to be torture or hazing, guess what? These girls had to go back inside and compete in more games later that same day. So I don't know.
On the equivalent of second-degree burns.
Well, let's just say blistering on their feet. No question about it. We know that. So I guess what's really concerning me is you've got a coach that's stupid enough to inflict this kind of punishment, even more stupid to do it in a public place, even stupider still to do it because they lost a game. But the cherry on the Mongo Sunday is that how well do you think your kids are going to perform in the other games in that tournament once you've decided to, in theory, brand them on the bottom of the soles of their feet? And the parents' reactions were kind of, I'll just say surprising, not disturbing. And here's why. One parent said, I can understand if they're being lazy on the court, making them run lines or something, but for them to have to take off their socks and shoes and run on scalding hot sandpaper, that kind of punishment is uncalled for. Now, maybe that parent was just trying to be polite and politically correct in his or her statement. If somebody with a microphone or a pencil and paper came up to me after I'd heard about this and it was my kid, my statement would have been something much, much different and clearly something that would not be publishable. Now,
actually, I think I'm with you, Tony.
Listen, that's one parent said, and this is what got me, and I don't have the quote, but one parent said, it's very upsetting to me. At the same time, they didn't want to give their name because she didn't want her daughter to get further punishment because the coach found out that the parent was upset. That's pathetic.
Well, there you go. There's the situation right there. Chances are the parents are being very guarded about what they say because perhaps they are worried about reprisal or repercussions or even worse treatment befalling their child.
That shouldn't even be a consideration, but you're right. It's just like fan violence.
First off, if this happens, the child is removed from that particular program.
I wouldn't let my kid play for a coach like that.
Oh gosh, no. I was very fortunate this year. In Parsippany, I got to witness just beautiful, beautiful coaching. The Partroy East Little League went to Williamsport and performed beautifully there. 3 games, they made it. The coaches were just so patient and polite and respectful and nurturing and encouraging. Everything you would imagine that a coach would be. And that's how you get success out of kids. Sure, you can beat it out of them. You can bully it out of them. But if you want total success, not only success on the field, but also success for their self-esteem, for their character, to become grown men and women someday, you take the approach that these coaches follow, the coaches that I see in many of the youth programs, the soccer programs, the football programs. And I would wager that most coaches across America are very much like the great coaches of Parsippany.
We all hope, and when you experience them yourself firsthand, you count your blessings. On this particular story, something nobody, well, I don't know if nobody mentioned it, but here's what came to my mind. What if I told you I have the newspaper in front of me, and a parent decided to discipline their child by making them walk on hot asphalt until their feet blistered? What would you say?
Gosh.
What if I told you that was it, what would you say?
Let's say the person needs to be in prison.
Okay, exactly. Do you think it would be out of line if Child Protective Services was called?
Absolutely not. It'd be out of line if they didn't investigate that.
I would be up in arms if CPS didn't actually take action against a parent like that, correct?
Absolutely. And you know what? The same sort of thing should be going on for this coach.
And I completely agree with that, because the incident was reported to the local news as well as to the school superintendent, and I'm going to say his name, Keith Richardson. And his reaction? I won't keep you in suspense. His reaction was that what happened with the coach was a lapse in judgment. And he made a statement, for the record, and I quote, "She's an excellent coach. She's had no other incidents on her record and would never do anything to intentionally hurt one of her players. She's going to receive a discipline reprimand." And that's it.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you're 5 years old, you know that you don't send people running on hot asphalt barefoot.
Yep. Not to the point where kids are blistered.
A very mild response to me.
You know, and listen, let's even say it was a momentary lapse in judgment. Let's even give the benefit of the doubt there. If the school system and the superintendent aren't going to have a backbone as the coach, how about sending a great message? How about a simple statement like, "Boy, did I screw that up. I meant to send a simple message. It got out of control, and you know what? I'm going to suspend myself for 3 games." Something. You can't just sweep that one under the rug. And by the way, the parents of this place, the parents in this school system, agree. One parent said what everyone else is thinking. Here's what we should do. Make her take off her shoes and her socks and make her run around that tennis court. Let her get her feet all blistered up, and then make her go play a couple more games in a tournament. Another parent said, what's going to happen to her? A slap on the wrist. All these girls love volleyball. They don't want to quit. It's just not right for them to have to go through this. And I cannot agree more. And I got to tell you, I better get a story from somebody in Texas this week with a revision on this saying that this spineless loser, Keith Richardson, the superintendent, has decided to step up and take further action.
Yeah, because, you know, it very well may have been a momentary lapse of judgment, but unfortunately the repercussions of them are not momentary. And even a momentary lapse of judgment sometimes is deserving of serious punishment.
I couldn't agree more, and I can't think of a better case where, hey, we know you didn't mean it. It's like I keep going back to the line from Breakfast Club when the wrestler gets dropped off for detention, and the dad just said, "Hey, everyone makes mistakes, kid. You just got caught, and just wear it. That's it. Man up." Even though it was a woman volleyball coach. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Before we go to the music, Deion Sanders, primetime. Many of you heard that he started Prime Prep Academy. First football game of the season. They lost 50-6. Way to go, prime time. Natalie Davis, I want to thank you for joining me. And, hey, listen, all of you, thank you for listening. Be sure to listen to me Monday through Friday on the Tony Fiorino Show. We'll see you in 2 days. Have a good weekend.